Are you looking to buy a business? Well, if so, stick around because in this video we're going to talk about 10 tips for buying a business. Hey everyone, Sean here. I'm with the University of Verne SBDC program where we offer free consulting, workshops, and access to resources just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And today we're talking about my top 10 tips for buying a business. Tip number 1, where to look. Business owners can start a new business from scratch or they can buy one. So a lot of people who are interested in buying a business often ask this question, and there's two great websites that I recommend you look at. One is called Biz Buy Sell and the other one's called BizBen. And both are a great curation of listings for sale for businesses in the local community and nationwide. You can set up parameters to filter your search based on gross revenue, industry, location, and all sorts. But what I like also is you can set up email alerts to get notified anytime there's a new listing that comes on the market. So even if you have a pocket listing, check out these websites as well. Tip number 2, understanding the difference between an asset sale and a stock sale. An asset sale is generally what you're going to be doing when you buy a business, where you create a new business entity and you purchase the assets of the old business entity of the seller and you transfer them to the new business. Essentially, this creates a clean breaking off point, which is why it's often recommended, versus a stock sale where you're buying out the shares of a corporation or you're buying out the owner. That doesn't give you as much of a clean breaking off point, and you may have prior liabilities to contend with. So know what the differences are and get some professional advice on which one is right for you based on your type of business. Tip number 3, structuring the deal. Often overlooked, but it's very important for you as a buyer to understand the motivations of the seller. Do they want all of their money up front? Are they looking for a steady stream of income over a period of time to support a particular lifestyle? In either case, the structure of the deal will be very different, and it's up to you to build a relationship with the seller to find a way to meet both of your needs. Tip number 4, taxes and add-backs. Generally, when you buy a business, the seller will provide you their tax returns to support the profitability of their business. They'll also include a list of add-backs, which are essentially expenses that the seller believes are not really critical or necessary to support the profitability of the business, therefore increasing the sales price. It's up to you to work with your seller to, discuss those add-backs. Most of them are going to be pretty much straightforward, non-cash expenses like depreciation, but other add-backs may need to be negotiated, let's say like an owner's salary. You might incur that expense too, and to what degree, that can be debatable, but be sure to look at your add-backs and the taxes of the business with your SBDC consultant. Tip number 5. Bank financing. Bank financing is usually easier to get for a business acquisition or the purchase of a business than it is for a startup. And that's because there's historical cash flow. But just know, if you're looking for bank financing, you're probably going to need to come in with about 10% down for the purchase price, as well as it's going to be termed out probably over 10 years if you're going SBA, which is a little bit longer, lowering your principal and interest. So that should be helpful. Tip number 6, seller financing. This is where the seller essentially turns into the bank and you negotiate a term and interest rate with them for the purchase of the business. This can be a good option, and it shows a sign of faith from the seller that you can ultimately run this business and afford to pay them back. So don't forget to explore your options here. Tip number 7, multiples and valuations. Not every industry will have a multiple applicable to their industry, but it's important to talk to your SBDC consultant about market research that might speak to the type of business you're buying. That way you can come into the game with a good initial starting offer. Tip number 8 is leases. If you're buying a business that's subject to a lease, it's really important to find out what the terms are and if it can be assigned to you. If you're buying a business and you have bank financing, it's also going to be important to the bank to make sure you have a term of a lease that's close to or at the term of the loan, because it's so critical to the success of your business. The rule of thumb generally is if you have a lease with less than 2 years worth of life left on the lease, you might just go ahead and renegotiate a new one with the landlord, but it's important to look at the terms and what the options are here when it comes to leases when you're buying. Tip number 9. If you're serious about buying a business, you're going to want to start putting together a team and having conversations with 3 main categories of service providers. Number 1, a broker to help you look for businesses for sale that fit your needs. Number 2, a CPA or accountant to help you evaluate their financial performance once you get into due diligence. And number 3, a lawyer, perhaps based on the structure of the deal, to make sure there's no liabilities that you aren't comfortable with or know about ahead of time. Lastly, tip number 10 is purchase agreements. Although they'll vary from deal to deal, it's important to look at what's in the agreement as well as what could be included. Things like, how will accounts receivable be handled? Will the seller stay on for a certain period of time to provide training? Are there clauses in there for indemnification or perhaps a non-compete? Things that you should know about. Every deal is different, but it's important to put together a good purchase agreement that clearly identifies what the sale entails so you ultimately have a successful business on the other side. All right, well, thanks for watching our 10 tips on buying a business. And don't forget, you can sign up for our free consulting to help work through your next business acquisition purchase. Just sign up at VerneSBDC.org. We'll pair you up with one of our consultants to meet via Zoom. But until then, thanks for watching.